ladies and gentlemen. He's a child of God, a husband, NRA conservative, radical right-wing supervillain, and Twitter rock star. American by birth, Texan by choice, and a badass by nature. He's the owner of TomO'Halloran.com, O'HalloranMedia.com, and PatriotRadio.net. Please welcome Tom O'Halloran.
Welcome to the Patriot Radio Show. I am Tom O'Halloran, your host, the one and only. I'm broadcasting tonight from my underground bunker deep in Arkansas, Nebraska, and I'm here to educate, irritate, and agitate. And folks, you will, guaranteed, be agitated by the time this hour's over. Again, my name's Tom O'Halloran. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm Sir TPO, his self. My primary webpage is TomO'Halloran.com. When you get there, please be sure to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, any other social media that you fancy. Also, please follow my editor, Veronica Coffin. She manages 15 websites on our network, and without her doing that, I wouldn't be able to do this. I'm on air 3 nights a week now, so please be sure to tune in Wednesday night for the Wednesday night edition. Do you see how that works? And Friday nights, we do things a little bit differently. We do Jihad on America, where we talk about the Islamists in America, who they are, what they want, and why you should be afraid. If you've not caught my show, Islam is Not a Religion, my show on the Muslim Brotherhood, or my show on Islamophobia, please find your way to PatriotRadioshow.com. Catch all 3 of these shows. They will give you an understanding on the topic that you've probably not heard before. It'll also bring today's news into a sharper focus for you, because you will understand why people are shooting at cartoonists. It'll also give you a solid foundation upon which we build each and every Friday as we continue to peel back the mask of Islam, looking what's being done in the name of Allah, both here and abroad. And I do the news about Islam abroad because it gives us a glimpse into the future of what's in store for us here in America if we continue to allow the cancer of Islam to spread here in the homeland. Before I get started, I just want to mention that over the last week or so, I've been working with my equipment, trying to get the show upgraded a degree or two, and I've all but given up on a degree or two. So I've been buying equipment online. In the next 2 to 3 weeks, we should have a complete new studio. We'll have a call-in line. We'll have mixers, professional-sounding ads. It'd just be a much smoother, much nicer show, and I hope you guys stick around and enjoy that. And my apologies for the last couple of weeks. I play my intro, which is just a kick-ass intro. And then I do the rest of the show, and I go back, and as I'm posting it up on the internet, I look at it and says, wait a minute. There's this 3-minute dead spot. My whole intro was being played, but it wasn't going over the airwaves. So we're looking to fix that. I really don't have any way to monitor what's actually going over the airwaves without a mixer that I can listen to the output on. So we're going to get that fixed. We're going to upgrade the show, and it's going to be in the very, very near future. Tonight we're going to do a kind of a recap, an update on the Jade Helm situation. We touched on this about a week and a half ago. There's been a lot going on since then. But there's a lot of talk on the internet. The internet's afire with Jade Helm, with all the different possibilities of it. And as we talk about what might be happening, we on the right get called loonies. People are handing out tinfoil hats because of we're talking about what may be going on. They may be coming to get our guns. The Walmarts are tied to this. All these different things that if we touch it, we get called right-wing radicals. Well, yeah, I'm down with that. But we also get called just plain lunatics. And that's usually in the best of times. But now, with Jade Helm rolling out, I want to take a look at who the lunatics are. When a military exercise the size and scope of Jade Helm 15 is announced, the accusations are amped up tenfold. We're mocked and ridiculed for our paranoia and our conspiracy theories and alarming statements. But when you take a look at what's been happening in America over the decade and a half since the Twin Towers were knocked down, it's hard to imagine anyone doubting our pleas for people to wake up. In the past 6 years, the Homeland Security Department has put out bulletins declaring that anyone complaining about big government, anyone calling themselves conservatives, constitutionalists, anyone returning home from an overseas deployment, or anyone calling themselves Christians might be a terrorist threat. What about you? Are you a conservative, a libertarian, a Christian, gun owner? Are you opposed to abortion, globalism, communism, illegal immigration, the United Nations, New World Order? Do you believe in conspiracy theories? Do you believe that we're living in the end of times? Do you ever visit alternative news websites? If so, then you too are in a class identified by the United States government as a possible terrorist. It's hard to imagine that we're living in a time when the very core of what made America what it is today could be looked at as being the problem. Ronnie Coffin, my editor, posted a column from Michael Snyder, February of last year. In this column, he lists 72 types of Americans that are considered a potential terrorist threat. Now, I'm not going to read through this entire list. I'm going to read several. But to see the rest of them, go to TomO'Halloran.com, and in the search box, just type in 72 types. The number 7, the number 2, and types, and it will come up with that. The column's a little over 2 years old, but for each one of these types of people, it's actually a hot link, and it will take you to the government document that identifies this type of a person as a problem. And we're talking about people that talk about individual liberties, those that advocate states' rights, those that are interested in defeating communists, those that believe that the interests of one's own nation are separate from the interest of other nations or common interest of all nations. Anyone that holds a political ideology that considers the state to be unnecessary, harmful, or undesirable. Anyone that's anti-gay, anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim. The Patriot movement. Those that believe that Mexico and Canada, the United States, are secretly planning to merge into a European Union-like entity known as Pan America or the North American Union. These are terrorist threats. Members of the American Border Patrol, anyone engaged in conspiracy theorizing, anyone opposed to the United Nations Agenda 21, anyone concerned about FEMA camps, anyone that fears impending gun control or weapons confiscations, militia movements, sovereign citizen movements, anyone that visits extremist websites like mine, anyone that establishes a website or a blog to display extremist views. And by extremists, they mean anything other than theirs. Thanks, Richard. Richard in the chat room just posted the column, 72 Types of Americans. Of course, he didn't post it from my website. Thanks, Richard. We're continuing on. Anyone that suddenly acquires weapons, anyone that protests or organizes protests inspired by extremist ideology, citizens that have bumper stickers that are patriotic. You're a possible terrorist threat if you have a bumper sticker that is patriotic or anti-UN. Those that are anti-global. Those that are suspicious of central federalized authority. Those that are reverent of individual liberty. If you revere individual liberty, you could be a terrorist threat. Those that possess a belief in the need to be prepared for an attack, either by participating in prepping or training or survivalism. Anyone that's anti-abortion. Anyone against illegal immigration. Anyone that believes in the right to bear arms. This is in the Constitution. But if you believe it, you're a potential terrorist threat. I read through all 72. You know who I didn't find? There's no mention of a potential terrorist threat if you're Muslim. If you're a Democrat, they're not going to look at you as a terrorist threat. People that drive from voting district to voting district to vote over and over and over again, no, they're not a threat. People that advocate killing innocent babies, these aren't terrorist threats. These are just proud Americans. But everybody else, everybody that I read off in the earlier list, have been identified as problems that need to be dealt with. Now, this is disturbing on a number of levels. But let's get away from the path that I'm going down right now. Let's step back and look at how this affects us on a day-to-day basis. This is the American government, the federal government, one of the largest employers in the United States, that has identified the core of Americana as being undesirable and a terrorist threat. Do you think any of us are getting government jobs? None of us. If your Facebook, if your Twitter, if your Instagram has an American flag on it, you're going to be passed over for somebody that's got an EBT card, a third-degree welfare recipient, somebody with Section 8 housing. Nobody that they consider a problem, a likely terrorist threat, is ever going to pass a job interview for the federal government. I mean, that in itself is a separate show. Because the federal government is not supposed to be partisan. Anybody should be able to apply and get a federal job if they want it. But when you look at who's being hired, when you look at who's getting jobs and ambassadorships, you've got to be not only gay, you've got to be a gay rights activist, you've got to be a communist, or you've got to be pro-UN. You've got to be something that is anti-American, as we know America to be. And that's totally disturbing. And that's a whole nother show. But that part of it just hit me today after I did a similar show to this morning when I stood in for Doc Green on Raging Elephants Radio. I did the same rant up front, and as I was going through the rest of the show, it just kind of dawned on me. All those people, those 72 classes of people, I doubt if any of them have been getting government jobs in a time when government jobs are about the only jobs in existence out there. Continuing on. Okay, our police forces have uniforms, trucks, and weapons that more closely resemble military units than police. With the recent rise in no-knock warrants and warrantless arrest, it's become obvious that the mentality of a despotic government police force has also been imparted on them. When a person takes a handout, a debt is incurred. Well, it's the same thing with state and local municipalities. When they accept these gifts of military vehicles, camo uniforms, AR-47s or AK-47s or AR-15s, whatever they're getting from the federal government, it's a handout. And in turn, the debt is called. They're being turned into a national police force. Obama had a report turned into him by some of his advisors. Communist, anti-American scumbags is what they are. And one of the leading things was a plea for a national police force. Of course, I'm sure that was the objective of the whole report. Go write up a report showing why we need a national police force. Justify what I'm getting ready to do. But I mean, what could be so wrong with a national police force, right? Has this ever been done before? Oh, wait a minute. National police. Yeah. That guy with the mustache. No, not Ted Danson. Hitler, the Gestapo. That was a national police force. As well as Russia's SVR and Russia's KGB. What's the difference between them and what Obama's getting ready to do? And let's not forget Bush's Patriot Act, which is now doing us a lot of damage. It's allowing the police to come into our homes with a show of force for any reason, without warrant or evidence. The government can also take us away at any time for interrogations. No longer are they required to charge us within 48 hours or cut us loose. Merely attach the Patriot Act to our arrest, and it sets everything else aside. And it classifies you as an enemy of the state. We've seen the IRS targeting taxpayers with conservative leanings for special delays and denials of tax-deferred status. We've seen journalists such as Cheryl Atkinson and reporters for Fox News targeted, their emails and computers hacked for not lying down and spewing the president's talking points. What free what free country has ever identified dissidents for targeted abuse? No free country. This has always been a tactic of fascist, totalitarian, tyrannical regimes. Yet our government has turned on the very people it was supposed to be serving. We're being subjected to constant monitoring, snooping, surveillance. From the NSA to traffic cams to facial recognition software in every Walmart in America. Every aspect of our lives is being monitored. Our emails, web surfing, social media tools, even our cell phones have software in them that will allow the NSA to identify our location to within 50 feet. Making a very, very easy trail for the government to pick us up at any time. The courts stand by and watch as our representatives in D.C. have allowed themselves to become virtual rubber stamps for Obama's despotic executive orders. Much as they did nothing as he purged the top brass in our military services over the last 6 years, firing or forcing into retirement anyone not backing his openly gay social experiment in the military. The experiment that's been destroying our military for the last 4 years. Firing or forcing into retirement others that said that they would never support an order to use military force on American people. And now, for the very first time in American history, there's a U.S. Northern Command, a fully active and operating military division called the 3rd Infantry Division that is assigned right here in the United States. Thanks to the Patriot Act and the Military Commissions Act of 2006, the federal government is authorized to treat U.S. citizens as enemy combatants just by declaring them so, With these laws, we no longer have the right to a trial by jury. Once Obama declares me to be an enemy of the state, my hope for a jury of my peers is out the window, along with my right to face my accuser, my right to a speedy trial, and my right to feel secure in my own home. With the announcement that Jade Helm exercise is to practice extractions, folks, that's military talk for kidnappings. Okay? They're going to practice extractions. How can we not be a tad paranoid? And I'm reminded of the old line, just because we're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't out to get us. We don't know what the Jade Helm exercise is really about, but how can it be hard for anyone to believe that dissidents like me will be swept up? How can it be hard to believe that they will use the exercise either as a cover for a door-to-door sweep to pick up personnel and or arms, or as a training for an exercise to be held later? How can it be a stretch to think that thousands of people that have voiced opposition to this tyrannical government will be rounded up and shipped to FEMA camps, FEMA domes, empty Walmarts, or off-the-books underground military camps? I'm not saying that we would be rounded up and killed. No, I'm not saying that we wouldn't either. After all, Hitler and many other despots used genocide to solve a lot of internal problems. But it is even more likely that we'd be shipped off to a FEMA camp for re-education a la Cambodia. Hard to believe? When was the last time you heard anyone calling somebody else a fag at work? Doing anything politically incorrect in today's workplace gets you sensitivity training, also known as re-education. They'll teach you what to think and what to say if you wish to continue to participate in the workplace. What in the world makes you think that the federal government is any less likely to round us up and re-educate us? To get us to understand that we must think and say and act in a certain manner if we wish to rejoin society. Tyrannical governments have been rounding people up all around the world for decades, whether to be locked up and tortured or just killed. Extrajudicial death squads have been known to be used in Iraq, Iran, El Salvador, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Jamaica, Thailand, Argentina, Colombia, Brazil, Chile, Honduras, Cambodia, Indonesia, Russia, the Philippines. And lest we forget, Nazi Germany. Now you tell me, what has Obama ever done to differentiate himself from these other despots, from these other tyrannical rulers? When you consider all that he's done to destroy America so far, when you consider all the lies he's told us, when you consider all the abuses of power he's committed, all the unconstitutional acts that he's been committed, how can any sane person state with any certainty that Jade Helm is just a military exercise? Now, as I said last week, we don't know what the exercise is about. We only know two things. A, what the government told us, and B, that the government always lies. That's all we know. But I'll be damned if I'm going to let anybody tell me that I'm being paranoid or that I'm being stupid because it's just a military exercise. This government has never done just an exercise. Everything they do has something behind it against the American people, the American way. Either to sell us down the river to the UN, to hurt our allies, or to prop up our enemies. You've read the list of what they think the problem is in this country. The problem is free-thinking, liberty-loving Americans like you, like me. So What is standing in the way of Obama using this exercise to round up the problem? They obviously see us as a problem. We've been identified as the problem in many government documents. Many government documents. This wasn't a document. This was several documents. Now, I did a Google search yesterday just to see where people's minds were at. It's always a good measure of what people are worried about. What are they concerned about? If you Google Walmart's close, there are 872,000 results. That's 872,000 news reports or blogs about Walmart closing 5 stores. Do a search for martial law in America. 5.5 million. Martial law in general, 16 million. Do a search for Jade Helm exercise. A little over 1 million. FEMA coffins, 195,000. But you do a search on UN troops in America, 75,900. People are worried about what's coming down. Whether it comes down July 15th to September 15th during Jade Helm, or whether it comes down later, people are worried about what's happening. They're very worried. Now, on the light side, before I get into the next segment, let me rephrase it. My favorite headline of the week in the entire blogosphere was this: U.S. military forces will take over Texas this summer and put enemies in FEMA death domes. And then in parentheses, either that or a military training exercise kicks off in July. They're covering both bases with that. Wasn't anything new in the column at all, but it did go to show the wide disparity in beliefs. And I don't have beliefs on it. I really don't. I don't know what is going to go on. Like I said last week, all we know are two things. A, what the government tells us, and B, that the government always lies. Now in this next set, I'm going to go over some of the things in play. And some of this is a repeat of what you heard a couple of weeks ago when I first did the Jade Helm. And some of this stuff is new. I'm not going to go over the logo. I think everybody has heard me do what the logo stands for, what it means, my belief on this. My belief on what is happening with the Jade Helm exercise, I'm wide open. I'm highly suspicious of anything and everything. My belief on the logo, it is the most evil thing I've ever seen come from the United States government. I think it's vile. I think it's intentionally evil. Whether it's evil because they plan on doing evil things, or whether it's just evil to piss people like me off and to get us talking about it, to get us focusing on the Jade Helm thing as a distraction, which we'll talk about in just a little bit as well. Last week we talked about who was going to be partaking in it. It's the Navy SEALs, the Air Force Special Operations Command, the USMC Special Operations Command, USMC Expeditionary Units, 82nd Airborne, and interagency partners. I don't like the vagueness of that. They tell us what branches of the military, they tell us what units of the different branches. Why are they vague on interagency departments? Are these police officers? Is this DEA? FBI? Homeland Security? Or is it UN, United Nations? That would be rather alarming, wouldn't it? To see a bunch of blue hats running around. That would be very, very, very disturbing. Okay, Walmart. There have been a few updates on the whole Walmart thing. 5 stores closed within hours of each other. Employees came to work 7 o'clock in the morning. They were told, we're going to close the store at the end of the day. All 5 stores used the same excuse. There's a plumbing problem. All 5 stores were told that they'll be closed for 6 months to permanent. And all employees, to the tune of a little over 2,200 of them, were laid off. All with plumbing problems. And not one store has yet to file for plumbing permits to do any work. There have been talks on the internet about tanks and helicopters staging at some of these empty Walmarts. I've yet to see any photos of them. They show photographs of helicopters flying in formation, and then they show a picture of a Walmart. Well, I'm not buying that. Until they show me a picture of tanks and or helicopters sitting on the ground in front of a Walmart in a photo that doesn't look photoshopped, I'm not going to buy that just yet. We do know that Walmart has the largest facial recognition software network in the world. Their stores all have high-definition cameras in the doors. When you walk through the door, they take your picture. They know you were there. They track you. They know what you buy. Shortly after the towers came down on 9/11, within a day or so, they had the photos of the 19 hijackers. These photos were taken to Walmart. They were taken to Walmart or sent via electronically. Walmart entered the photographs into their facial recognition software, scanned the pictures, and they identified each one of them and the store that they bought their box cutters at. So Walmart is very clearly in bed with the federal government. This is an important thing to take note of. Also, after 9/11, and this is a good thing, after 9/11, Walmart got on their computer and they said, okay, this truck, this truck, this truck, and this truck all have things like water, blankets, medicines, stuff like that, all things that they would need at ground zero. So they rerouted trucks. Supplies were on the ground within hours. The dust was still hanging in the air as the supplies pulled up. Again, it's a good thing. But the point is, they had a contract with DHS. Now, the contract may have been drawn up after the fact. Who's to say? Walmart would send the trucks over there. We'll worry about the money later. We'll get a contract for all that. But the point is they now, at least since 9/11, Walmart has a relationship with Department of Homeland Security. They've got the facial recognition software. They've got the ability to ship anything, anywhere in a matter of hours because it's probably on the road already. It's also important to be aware that Walmart has received $1 billion in government grants in 2008. This was according to Money Magazine. There may have been more money since, we don't know. But Money Magazine in 2008 published an article about $1 million in government grants to Walmart, owned by one of the richest families in the world. And not one person. There are like 8 people in the family that are on the Forbes richest 500. The company itself is worth billions and billions. So they didn't need $1 billion. They didn't need $1 billion to buy a store, buy land, or expand. Richard in the chat room is saying that he saw in a document that the interagency partners at least included NSA, the CIA, the FBI, and so forth. Includes, but not all-inclusive. So it could be that, and it could still be foreign nations and or the United Nations. So why would the federal government give $1 billion to Walmart? it was supposedly for expansion. First off, since when does the government give a corporation money for expanding? Secondly, they didn't need $1 billion to expand. They have more money than God has. So what did they really get the $1 billion for? Was this to roll out their facial recognition software? Was this to buy stores in certain areas? Build a Walmart only to close it down a couple of years later so that there would be an empty property in a convenient location for the government to come and lease back at a given time? Not infeasible. Stores in certain locations. There are underground tunnels all over the country. People say, what? Underground tunnels? Okay, now we're getting into tinfoil hat territory. Folks, I got to tell you, every city in this country, every large city in this country has underground tunnels. That's where the city's pipes go. Oftentimes there are subways, but just the city's infrastructure for pipes, for sewage, for electrical cables. This is all underground tunnels. And if every city has these, where does it become a stretch that the federal government doesn't have a few of these tunnel digging machines and hasn't been building tunnels from under every state house in every state in the country, going outside of the city 20 miles to some underground cavern where the politicians at least can be saved if they totally screw up America and get us attacked? We don't know. We waste a ton of money. They don't know where a lot of the money goes. Hillary Clinton herself lost $6 billion when she was Secretary of State. $6 billion in 3 years she lost. I tell you what, I lose $10, my wife's all over me. $6 billion. This crazy woman that wants to be the president lost $6 billion with the B dollars. The Pentagon in Afghanistan over the last several years, the Pentagon has lost $40 billion. I'm not saying that anybody took it. I'm not saying that Hillary's $6 billion anonymous donation to her campaign has anything to do with the same $6 billion. I'm just saying that a lot of money disappears with the government. And who's to say that they haven't been building these tunnels? And who's to say that some of these Walmarts aren't located conveniently above a tunnel? We do know that Walmart has 300 to 350 closed Walmarts at any given time. Stores that they built, they opened, and at some time later they closed. Maybe they bought a newer one. Maybe there's nothing nefarious there at all. Or maybe they bought it, they built it, to leave it empty for the government to use as a FEMA camp. Who knows? I don't know. I'm asking questions. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not saying this is what they're doing. I'm saying this is what people are saying might be happening. And I'm saying we need to get the answers. The government owes us the answers. They work for us. We do know that in late last year, FEMA put out a call to contractors and realtors looking for malls and big box properties to, quote, house undocumented aliens from Central and South America. Desired properties should be large enough to have kitchens, classrooms, and medical facilities. Okay. So they're looking for large properties. Walmart has 300 at any given time, and 5 specifically were closed down about the same week they announced Jade Helm getting ready to get underway. Then we've got the tunnels. What do they have to do with Jade Helm? Maybe nothing. But we've got more. And again, any one of these line items could be absolutely nothing. But when you look at the long list of questionable items, it kind of builds a pattern. Northrop Grumman, they build airplanes, they build rockets. They build silos for these rockets. Now, to build a silo, you have to have a boring tool. A silo is nothing but a vertical tunnel. So Northrop Grumman, who is a major defense contractor, receives billions of dollars every year for year in and year out. They have a tunneling tool. Well, in 1983, Northrop bought the Ford Motor Company plant on the very land that the Pico Rivera Walmart, one of the Walmarts that's being shut down, the very land that the Walmart sits on right now. So Northrop, that builds tunnels, bought the Ford Motor Company plant in 83, and now a Walmart sits on it. A tunnel building company bought this land, and today a Walmart sits on the land. I tell you what, this is starting to sound fishy, but there's still not enough of a connection, is there? Okay, let's try this one. In 2011, Northrop Grumman, again, high-tech aerospace company, they added a new CFO to their, there's a CFO to their board. Not as a CFO, but just as their board, as a board member. An ex-Walmart CFO. Now that's causing my bullshit factor to start whopping off. It's going, wait a minute. Beep, 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 beep. Something stinks here. Not that they don't have a right to hire any CFO they want for their board, but the guy's a CFO. They have a CFO. They didn't need a CFO. They seemed to want somebody senior from Walmart. Or maybe Walmart wanted to seat one of their people. Why? Does it have anything to do with Walmarts? Does it have anything to do with tunnels? What do you think? Richard? Talk to me. Veronica's in the chat room. Veronica says they're just waiting for the old folks. Oh, she's talking about Obamacare. Nobody wants to deal with Obamacare, and I don't blame them. Amen. Actually, they're just waiting for the old folks to die off or be placed in institutions because the young people have already been indoctrinated to accept whatever the liberal government says. Amen to that. The reason the young people are going along with it, they don't know what freedom is. They don't know what liberty is. They don't know what America used to be like when we were growing up. They don't know the day when you could walk out of your house and go to work without locking your door. The young people of today are clueless. They have no idea what we talk about when we talk about America's greatness, because they've never known it. All they've known is a government that gives handouts, a government that tells you what you can do and what you can't do and what regulates every facet of your life. They don't know the meaning of the word freedom or liberty. You watch this Mark Dice go down to the boardwalk and do his interviews, telling young people, yeah, we want to repeal the First Amendment. Okay, people are signing the roster to repeal a right to free speech. Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. People shouldn't have a right to say anything they want to say. They're clueless because our government schools have been dumbing them down for decades. Ronnie in the chat room says, I've had so many young people tell me there is nothing wrong with communism or socialism. This is absolutely right. They don't see anything wrong with it because they've been taught by communists and socialists for decades. Not just these guys, but their dads, their moms have been taught that way. This has been going on so long, it may be impossible to get back to what we had. Richard in the chat room saying, except that the young people are starting to push back against the current regime. We can only hope, brother, from your lips to God's ears, that enough of them will wake up and start pushing back. Enough of them will realize that they're going to be paying for the debt for the rest of their lives and their kids' lives. The 20-year-olds today will have their kids paying off the debt that we currently owe to China. The grandkids of the kids that are out there today. It's mind-boggling. Folks, I don't know what's going to happen July 15th to September 15th. We do know a couple of things about the exercise, that they tell us about the exercise. We don't know that these are facts, but this is what they say. It's an exercise to blend in. We want our military, our special operations forces, to try to blend into a community. Now, this is going to be a real challenge. Here's the thing. Okay, we're going to have Americans dispatched to an American city and try to blend in and look like Americans and try to speak American so that they don't get it detected. Man, that's going to be a tough call. Can they pull this off? Can Americans actually look, act, and speak like Americans without getting somebody suspicious? Because people know if you see something, say something. Yeah, I just saw somebody over at Starbucks. They look like an American. They're talking American. Hurry, send the police. This is stupid. You want to try an exercise of blending in? Send them to Russia. Tell them to blend in with Russians. That might be a challenge. You'd have to teach them something new, like Russian. This is the dumbest exercise I've ever heard. Try to blend into an American city. Duh! To make matters worse, a report I saw yesterday, the exercise will mostly be carried out between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. So we're going to have Americans walking around American cities at night when most of the Americans that are still out at that hour are drunk anyway. Well, they're not going to notice anything. You could have ducks walking around talking American and they wouldn't say anything. Do you see what I'm saying here? What they're telling us this exercise is doesn't make a damn bit of sense. If you want an exercise in blending in, you send your people somewhere else where it would be a challenge. You don't just say, go home. I'm going to say it again, folks. If you're in any of the cities where this Jade Helm exercise is happening, in any of the cities, if you see any person grabbing another person and stuffing them into a car, use your phone and take pictures. Supposedly, some of these special operations forces characters are going to be dressed in civilian clothes and acting as me, basically, as an enemy of the state. These people will be will be identified by the people in uniform, or perhaps other people in civilian clothes trying to fit in, looking like Americans. And they'll be grabbed up by this other group. We don't know that they're really picking up other military people in the exercise, or whether they're really picking up people like me, the mouth from the South. Are they just picking up dissidents? And when somebody walks by saying, dude, what are you doing? Oh, it's part of an exercise. He's an actor. Who's going to say what? Oh, okay, dude, go ahead. Meanwhile, every blogger that talks about how tyrannical the government is getting rounded up. Everybody with a microphone that talks about how crooked the government is, how Obama should be impeached and then drawn and quartered, gets rounded up, put into a FEMA camp or a FEMA dome. We don't know what's going to happen, but if you're in a location where this exercise is being carried out, if you see anything, take pictures and post the pictures or email me the pictures. I'll make sure they get spread far and wide. Let's identify the people that are being rounded up as best as possible. And then when people start turning in missing persons reports for their kids or for their husbands, maybe we can compare them against the photos of people we saw getting rounded up by Obama's death squads. Oh, I'm sorry, by Obama's training exercise. I said that tongue-in-cheek. I'm not here to fan the flames and say that they're rounding people up to kill them or to torture them. I'm just saying that we don't know. Ronnie in the chat room says, everyone is rewarded for reporting on one another who seems subversive to the regime. So many are afraid. Then she says, when I was behind the Iron Curtain, 12-year-old kids had no dental work and were missing teeth. And they're turning in their parents. They're turning in their neighbors because something looked fishy. And that's what Obama's trying to get us to do. That's what this exercise does. I don't know if it's the purpose of the exercise, but that's what it's going to do. It's going to have people calling up saying, hey, my neighbor over here just did something funny. You might want to come check him out. Ronnie continues, she says, on buses, the center seat folded down to accommodate more people. So when people got off the bus, they had to literally crawl over others to get to the exit. Didn't matter if you had reservations at a hotel, you had to pay someone if you wanted your reserved room. Graft is too big there. Airlines had no steward, so people throwing up only had a bag and no assistance from other passengers. This is what happens when you get a socialist country, a communist country. The whole place goes to hell. Folks, if you haven't seen the movie, oh, for Pete's sakes. I'm going to have to look it up. I'm drawing a blank on it. It's a great movie about... I used to think it was a black comedy. Now it dawns on me that it's severely not. I'm going to try to look it up while I'm talking. Now, we've talked about what the exercise might be. We've talked about what people are saying that it is. There's another possibility. Jade Helm may be something completely unlooked at by most people. One of the things that... give me 1 second here. I can talk. I could talk to the chat room and do my radio thing, but I can't type and do that. Okay, the movie I'm looking for, it came to me as I was starting to search for it. The movie is Brazil. It stars Robert De Niro. It was done in, what was the year on this one? It was done in, Let me type the name of the movie in. Brazil. It was done in 1985. And the movie was actually written and done by Terry Gilliam of Monty Python. And it's all about a government that is overrun the country. Most of the people in the country work for the government. The government owns everything. All the companies are run. You've got to get it. I hope it's on Netflix. If not, go on eBay, buy the DVD. It'll be $5. It'll be well worth it. I used to see it as a comedy, a black comedy. But now I look at it. I look at what the country's doing. It's how it's going downhill fast. And I see, and the media, the only media there is the Department of Information and the Department of Misinformation. I mean, it's a very dark movie, but it kind of shows you where we'll be in 10 years if we don't turn this around real fast. Maybe a lot sooner than 10 years. Okay. What I think Jade Helm might be all about. One of the things that Obama has excelled in is, look at this crisis over here. Remember, they're the ones that outed. They admitted. They had Lois Lerner at a press conference say, we accidentally were filtering out conservatives and Tea Party people from the tax program because we weren't wanting to give them tax-deferred status. They outed themselves on that scandal. Okay, why? Because they wanted to correct it and fix it? Because they felt sorry? Bull crap. They did it because they wanted us to look over here at their left hand while they did some other things with their right, some more nefarious things. Okay? This whole Jade Helm may be just evil enough to get us talking, to get us focusing on it, to get 100 million blogs and newspaper articles and everybody worried and focusing, looking at Jade Helm. We're Googling Jade Helm 1,000 times a minute now. What are they going to be doing? What are they doing now? What are they going to be doing with the other hand while Jade Helm is going on? Well, you're out there taking pictures from me. My email address, by the way, is TPO. That's Tango Papa Oscar at TPO.net. Send me any photos that you might get of any of this stuff or any stories that you might come across that should be covered. Veronica manages 15 websites. She surfs the internet. She pulls all the best stories down to the different blogs and stuff. But we can't possibly see, read, or know it all. But we know that something other than what Obama's administration is saying is going to happen. And as evil as what they're saying is going to happen, as evil as that is, as bad as that sounds, what they're hiding has to be a lot worse. Maybe the Walmarts have nothing to do at all with Jade Helm. Maybe Jade Helm is going to be working over there on the other side of the town. The Walmart's on the other side, and that's where they're going to be bringing busloads of immigrants into. Maybe it has nothing to do with FEMA camps. Maybe that's really where they're going to store the undocumented aliens, the illegal aliens that Obama plans to bring across, like he brought hundreds of thousands of them across last year. Okay, we don't know. All we know is what the government told us, and that the government always lies. That's it for this evening. I hope you enjoyed the show, my friends. Good night, America. God bless you and yours. This is Tom O'Halloran. I'm out. And thanks, guys, in the chat room. Love you both. Bye.